We're joined by the member for Barwon, Roy Butler. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm well, Rod. How are you?
Good. Lots of announcements from the New South Wales government in your electorate, the seat of Barwon, on the weekend.
Yeah, I know that Sam was up there in Burke and running around making announcements. I mean, some of these things are really positive, like the rail announcement, 24 million to upgrade the line between Gill and Canamble. That's really positive because that will increase the tonnage that can be carried, and it's a more efficient form of freight for our farmers to get produce to where it's got to go. So that's really good news and something that I certainly welcome. The $5 million for the finishing of the Winaring Road, I mean, that's something I've spoken with Burke Council about when I met with them face to face, and we've certainly taken that up with the Regional Roads Minister and indicated that's something that needs to happen. So happy that announcement has been made, and the council will be stoked because it means they can finish that road off. The one that's probably generated the negative feedback at the moment is the bus service, Wilbur, because it sounds like something that's been put up just for an election. If it was a need years ago, then why wasn't it there years ago? But it sounds like, based on what I've heard so far, that in terms of your local bus operators, they weren't even consulted or given a chance to tender for the service. And then, with what the state government's looking to do with poker machines at the moment, which today it looks like in the media they want to press ahead with. The other question is, were the clubs consulted about whether their existing courtesy services could be extended and some more revenue could be pumped into those clubs and provide some more employment to people who are already in Burke and working in Burke? I mean, these are all questions that would be nice to get answers to, but government at the moment is not being very transparent with how they're doing these things. I know I contacted Sam going back a couple of weeks ago, and he still hasn't come back to me. So that's unusual for him, but I'm guessing they're in election mode and they're just pushing ahead with making every announcement and putting every shiny thing on the table that they can in the lead up to the election.
But you're the member for Barwon, and your opinion counts on these sorts of things. And they're nice announcements, and good to have a minibus running around Burke taking people to places because we don't have taxi services now. But the local bus services, be it they in Burke or even somebody over in Brewarren or something like that, and they should be given an option.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you've got an existing service there, so existing infrastructure, existing people, buses that are compliant, it's a great opportunity to say to somebody, well, do you want to grow or expand your business? Is there capacity then to put another person on? That would be something that I suppose is a lasting effect on the community. I mean, at this point, I think the Wilbur service is funded for $160,000. That's at this stage. There's nothing I've seen about a commitment for ongoing funding. So it'll be with us, through the election and for a little bit of time after that. And then what happens? These are the questions, I suppose, that it'd be nice to have answers to. And certainly those local services, given they've already got the existing infrastructure, would probably be able to do it for a lot less in terms of having to employ a new person, having to buy a new vehicle. But anyway, this is what happens, I suppose, in the election season. They want to dangle all sorts of things out there, and I mean, I welcome anything that brings money to the electorate, Rod. That I'm never negative about it. But I think when it's public money, there's a couple of things. One is that public money should never be used for electioneering, to gain favour or to try and draw attention to a political party, but also that public money needs to be spent very carefully. It needs to deliver public value. Now, in the short term, certainly with the rail, that's public value. I can absolutely acknowledge that. The finishing of the Winaring Road, that extra $5 million, there's public value in that. That'll lead tourists to Winaring, and I think you're aware that previously we've spoken about the idea of the cut line being sealed, and that's a proposal from the RMS. Now, if the cut line was sealed, that means you'd get tourists all the way from Burke outward through Winaring over to Tibbara. You've also got an all-weather route for stock transport and that sort of thing, because there's a lot of graziers out there. That's all good stuff. But yeah, you've really got to make sure that there is public value, and I think that the bus service is probably the one where I look at it and go, yeah, well, in the short term, people will benefit from that, no doubt. But in the long term, what about our local bus services that exist? And as I said, tapping those clubs on the shoulder that have the courtesy buses that run around already and say, hey, would you be interested in expanding your service and getting some extra revenue in, especially with the revenue that they probably will lose soon with poker machine reforms and cashless gaming cards.
And there's the other announcement made at the weekend, $391,000 for female changing facilities to be built or installed at the Davidson Oval. Very welcome for the sports.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, there's so many facilities around the West. I mean, because we've got duplication of assets right across the West, nearly 150 communities, and every community's got public infrastructure that some of it's quite dated. So, there would have been once upon a time where it would have only been men using the change rooms, and then probably for a period of time we've compromised and said, well, men use this side and women use that side, or alternate the days that sports are played. But having dedicated female change rooms and facilities, I mean, it shows respect at a start for female competitors, and certainly, I mean, a lot of our infrastructure for sports facilities and change rooms, that sort of thing, is quite dated. So some nice new facilities there will probably attract more women to get out and get involved in sport, which is great. And it's a lasting piece of infrastructure for our community. So anything like that is always a plus. It makes our community a better place to live. It increases participation in those healthy sports outdoors. So, I certainly welcome that announcement. That's a good one, and look forward to them getting on with it. The only thing I'd say is, we are very close to an election, and if it was a need now, it was probably a need 2 or 3 years ago. So I think probably what's happening is the government's probably holding back on some of these announcements to try and align them with the election so that they can say, look over here and look at this good stuff we're doing. But I don't think people's memories are that short. You've only got to go back to 4 years ago when our communities were on their knees, communities without drinking water, drought, communities affected by drought, totally unsupported in terms of the local economy and agriculture that was always wondering when and what assistance would come. That's not that long ago. I'd just say don't be distracted by the fact that they're spending money, because they've spent a record amount of money in Barwon this term. They've spent more money in Barwon since I was elected than they've ever spent, which is great. And there's a lot of catching up to do, a lot of years of neglect in terms of public infrastructure and water infrastructure, and there's a lot more to do. And I suppose with the damage we've seen to our roads through the flooding, it's my intention, if the people of Barwon want me to come back and do another term, to really, really hammer that idea that roads need to be built not just back to what they were, they need to be built back better, and that's going to take years and billions of dollars. But I think if someone's not there sort of shining a light on it, and and the risk is, I suppose, if you have a member of a major party, they could be in opposition, or they might just be sort of muzzled and told to sit there and be quiet and do what they're told. But as an independent, I don't have to do what I'm told, so I can keep shining a light on those problems, and if need be, embarrassing the government into doing something about it. So that's kind of how I see it playing out, Rod. But who knows what will happen.
The election is not too far away, and looking at some of the paperwork here, the bus service, the Wilbur bus service in Burke, is just a 12-month trial.
12-month trial, so starting I think on the 27th of Feb, which is just less than a month before the election. But then, it's only going to run for 12 months. So I suppose it's like those subsidised airfares, which we've seen come and go over the time. Whether they're there for just trying to gain favour in the lead up to an election, or whether it's a lasting legacy that benefits the community on an ongoing basis. But I mean, if they haven't yet bought the bus for the Wilbur bus service, and I know they had a picture of a bus on a sign, but I don't know if they've bought the bus, then there might still be the opportunity to go and talk to those local bus services and see what role they can play, and if they're interested in expanding their business and expanding their fleet potentially and getting involved in doing that. But that's something that it may be too late. The horse may have bolted, given that 27th of Feb's not that far away. They might have already procured a vehicle and a driver, I'm not sure. But it's a shame if there's existing businesses and existing services like the clubs that want to do that work and be happy to take that money, but can't do it because they haven't been given the opportunity.
I thank you for talking with us this morning. We'll catch up again Friday.
No problems, Rod. Have a good week.
That is, of course, if the New South Wales government doesn't make further announcements this week, where we need to get a response from the member for Barwon, Roy Butler. Outback Mornings, Outback Radio, 2WEB.